First of all, I'm Susan Watson. You usually see Kate Meyer from our team on this call, and Melissa Luck is on our call. She's our client resource counselor. We're with the Women's Resource Center in Alamance County, and we are delighted you're here today. This is clearly a hot topic because as soon as we put it out, in our marketing efforts and said it was about decision making, people started registering, which thrills us to no end. But I struggle with decisions every single day. And Trudy, I think all the way around them, my what if things to death. But we want to hear from you. Trudy is a licensed clinical counselor and a coach, a personal coach, reinvention coach for women. And we're delighted that she is one of our facilitators for several monthly workshops already this year. We're hoping that she's going to stay on board with us, and we'll be able to offer more things coming up in the future that help women move forward, handle the life transitions that so many of us are doing, those challenges in your life that come up, how to do it better, how to do it easier, how to take away some of that drama. So Trudy, we're going to turn it over to you. Welcome, and let's help us make some great decisions today.
Okay, that's my intention. So thank you to Women's Resource Center of Alamance County for inviting me back. I appreciate it. That is my life's work, is to help women transform into their highest selves, whether I'm doing it by counseling or by coaching, and they are different. And if anybody wants like a little blurb on what the difference is, I have created a sheet of paper on that, and I'd be glad to send it to anybody because I know it gets a little confusing. So I don't want to take up the presentation time explaining all that, but if you would like information, I'd be glad to do it. I don't know if you can see behind me that's a stylized dragonfly. And you'll see it in my presentation, dragonfly. Here's a dragonfly ring, dragonflies, because dragonflies mean transformation. They've been around since prehistoric times. So obviously they've been able to evolve, and they're obviously very strong. And I don't know if you know it, because we usually think of butterflies, but dragonflies start off as water creatures and become airborne. So they do transform, and their wings look very delicate, but they are strong. And that's what I want for women to know. We might, they say the weaker sex, nonsense. We are the stronger sex. So I really want people to know that and to own and become their truest self, which I consider to be your best, most authentic self. So that's what I'm all about. I love doing presentations that help women do that. So with no further ado, I am a co-host, right? So I can share my screen. All right, so we're going to talk about decisions. And I welcome people interrupting. You could put, Susan, if you would mind the chat, that would be a help in case people put things in the chat if they don't want to say it out loud.
I will, that's fine. Melissa and I can do that.
Okay, great. Okay, so I've already explained why I have the dragonfly. And why I have lots of color is just because I love color. It makes me happy. Here we go. So. Okay, the art of making decisions, because that's really, it can be an art. We don't think of it that way, but I'll tell you why I named the presentation, The Art of Making Decisions. And that is because I'm going to show you how you can use your left brain as well as your right brain in making decisions. Most decision-making workshops and things only focus on the left. We're going to focus on both. Anybody know how much the average adult brain weighs, by the way? It's kind of fascinating. Anyone?
Is it 8 pounds?
No. That would be nice, because then we could say, hey, no wonder I'm overweight. I have a big brain. No.
Right.
3.5 pounds?
Yeah, it's close. It's between 2.5 and 3 pounds. And it's the greatest computer in the world. Isn't that amazing? I mean, it takes in 10,000 new gigabytes every second. So the left brain, the things I really want to focus on with it, is that today it does a lot of things, but it analyzes, it's logic. This is a good way to, by the way, to remember what the left brain does. Left logic. It focuses on facts and on reasoning. Okay. Where our right brain focuses on intuition, our feelings, daydreaming, and imagination. Obviously, there's other things that they do, but if you're a really think about what you're doing for a living or what your hobbies are. If you're creative, chances are you're very right brain. Also, if you're a good speller, which I find interesting, a good speller in English, you are right brain. That's because it makes no logic the way we spell. That's really what it is. It makes no logic. Just think of through, throw, thought, O-U-G-H, pronounced all sorts of different ways. It makes no sense. Anyhow, if you're really good at math and bookkeeping, very detailed oriented, then you're very left brain. I imagine, Susan, you're very left brain, I would think. Yeah, she's great at that. She helps me with that because I am not. All right. What do you think decide means? To decide. What does it mean? Because that's one reason it's difficult to make decisions. What does decide mean? Anybody want to share? Can you see anything, Susan?
Make a choice.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yep. It is making a choice.
But also weighing decisions.
Weighing decisions.
Weighing facts or
back and forth. Okay, I'll come. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But actually, you know what it means? It is a choice, but guess what? It means to cut off from. This is why it's so difficult. We make one choice, we're cutting off other choices. And if you think about the word decision and incision, it can actually feel like an incision, can't it? Oh my God, it's cutting deep into me. What the heck? What if I do it wrong? The other thing that happens with decision making is FOMO. And especially, I think this is really good, especially, no offense to those of you who are younger and are always on social media, but you can really see it with that. It's fear of missing out. So that's why people will be on social media checking what everybody else, especially the younger generation, what everybody else is doing, fear of missing out. So that's what makes it difficult. Any comments? Okay. Did somebody say yes? Okay. So we all have decisional styles, which are common ways in which people make decisions. What I'd like you to do as these come up, I want you to just put in the chat which one you think you are, if you're willing, okay? So the first one is the rationals, and that is characterized by a thorough search for and logical evaluation of alternatives. So the example is, I make decisions in a logical, systematic way. What would you say? Is that person left or right brain mostly?
Left.
Left.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't know if you saw, but between the left and the right, I had the words corpus callosum. That is how the left and right brain hemispheres communicate with each other. And it is stronger in women than it is in men. So this is just a little brain fact that I think is interesting. So when they think that women, they go, oh, you're so emotional. We actually use both sides of our brains more than men do because we can communicate between the two easier. It doesn't mean that we're just emotions. Intuitive. Now here's going to be, what would you think intuitive is? Right or left brain? Yep. So it's a reliance on hunches and feelings. So if you think, wow, when I make decisions, I tend to rely on my intuition. There you go.
That would be me.
That would be you. Okay. So I just said that you were left brain, but you're also very right brain then.
I'm probably more right-brained.
Ah, good.
I think I've had to learn the left brain stuff.
I got it. Okay, good for you because you learned it. Good for you. I balance, my sister who's a bookkeeper says, you can't balance a checkbook. And I go, yes, I can. And I put it on top of my head. That's how I balance my checkbook. All right. Dependent is a search for advice and direction from others. Do you ever have that? That you keep asking, you keep consulting other people, you're not trusting yourself? That can get you very confused. Avoidant, then we have, whoa, I'm not going to make a decision. By the way, not making a decision is a decision. But a lot of people will avoid important decisions until the pressure's on, just like people don't do their homework until until it's the last minute, right? Or you might be spontaneous, which is a sense of immediacy, desire to get through the decision-making process as soon as possible. You just kind of are winging it and you make snap decisions. That doesn't mean you're all one or the other. Depending on the decision that is in front of you, you might go back and forth between two. Can anybody not recognize a style? All these examples seem you can relate to, everyone? At least one of them? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, as it says, it's taken from the General Decision-Making Style Inventory by Scott and Bruce. So there are maladaptive decision styles and there are adaptive ones. Maladaptive ones tend to lead to negative outcomes. So I take it that the reason most of you are here is because you're concerned that your decision-making process is going to lead to negative outcomes, whichever style you use. And adaptive ones tend to lead to positive outcomes. So the decisional styles have different psychological antecedents. I am a licensed clinical social worker, so of course I throw in the psychology behind it. But there is, we might have an erroneous belief that we think is true. Just because we believe something, and if you missed my workshop that I presented for Women's Resource Center, it was on beliefs and how to, erroneous beliefs and how to transform them. So I'm not sure if that one got recorded, but you're more than welcome to, if it did. And I know we started recording them at some point, but anyhow, that's important to realize what beliefs do I hold. And what a belief is, it's just thoughts that you've thought over and over and over again until you think they're true. It doesn't make it true, by the way, any more than the world was flat, right? That's what everybody believed until proven otherwise. There might be a poor ability to gather information, have a lot of anxiety, which can really get us in the way of being able to make decisions, and fragile self-esteem, because when we trust ourselves, we're able to make better decisions. So people with adaptive decisional styles generally have a positive self-concept. They have a capacity to search for information. So even if they don't know the information, they are willing to hunt for it. They go on Google, they do whatever. They have an ability to manage their emotions. It doesn't mean that they don't feel some anxiety about the decision, but they're able to manage it. They have high self-esteem, so they trust themselves, and they have the ability to problem solve. So what happens is all of us have an aspirational self, our truest best self. And this might be our behavior and how we're operating. And when we feel negative emotion, well, all that negative emotion is, it's letting us know that there is a gap between these two. That's all negative emotion is. It's not bad. It's not bad. All emotions serve a purpose, but it lets you know that something has to change so that you can get more in alignment with your highest inner self that does really know what's best for you. And that's actually what I do in my work. So, okay. Interferences with decision making. And anytime you want to ask a question, please do. I don't want to just be talking at you and running lots of information. And by the way, if you want these slides, I will be more than happy to, either through Women's Resource Center or directly.
If they can give us the MAC address with serial number, and then we'll go to lunch.
Okay.
Jaime, could you please, thank you, to send you the slides. So don't feel like you have to make take a lot of notes. You're more than welcome to, but I will send you the slides if you want. So things that interfere with decision making, or if it's a lot of complexity, some decisions have too many options and decisions. Rather than a choice between two options, there's a whole bunch of different things that go on. And that leads to uncertainty. When there's too many, we just can feel totally overwhelmed. And the uncertainty really is related to not knowing what the consequences are. And that's where the anxiety comes from. You want to know the outcome, the consequences of your decision before it ever happens. If I take this job, what will happen? If I go back to school, what will happen? If I go to this university, what will happen? If I marry this person, what will happen? You know, we have all sorts of, and we want to know that ahead of time, but that's why hindsight is always 20/20. We can only do the best that we can with the information we have at the time. But I'm going to teach you some ways that you can get more in tune with that. So, are there people who always struggle with making decisions? Okay. Some people only struggle in certain areas, like maybe with relationships, but they can make a snap decision about what job to take. Different people are different in that way. Maybe you're good at making decisions, but you don't make good decisions. You realize, wow, I'm not really good at making good decisions. And we're going to talk about the differences of all these. Or I'm unable to make decisions quickly. I just agonize over it. So that's the paralysis of analysis. Can you guys read this little cartoon? It's cute, I think. So it's, you know, it's not an important decision, but this can happen, right?
Happens here all the time.
Yeah. I have to say, when it comes to going out to eat with friends, I'm very much like that because I don't really care. For me, it's like, I just want to be with my friend, and unless it's a particular kind of food that I hate, which is rare, but there are a couple ethnic kinds of foods that I don't like. Otherwise, yeah, whatever you want, fine with me. All right. So there is also a difference in indecisiveness and indecision. That affects our ability to make decisions quickly. So indecisiveness is a chronic condition, where indecision is temporary and natural. We all have decisions in which we have an indecision. We're not sure about it, right? All decisions, we're trying to figure it out. But if you're chronically stuck in inability to make decisions, that's indecisiveness. And generally, people who are indecisive leads to procrastination, because you want to make sure it's the right decision. And again, procrastination could lead to not making a decision. And as I said, no decision is a decision. Due to lack of self-confidence and chronic unregulated emotions. While indecision sometimes can happen, if you are sleep deprived, that's not a good time to make decisions. Our brains literally can't think straight. And if for some reason you're feeling a lot of anxiety at the moment, do some meditation, do some calming techniques so that you can regulate your emotions. And if we're in a hurry, ever have to like, oh gosh, I got to make this decision right now, and I don't have all, you know, I don't have all the information, and that can sometimes block us because we have to do it in a hurry. So if we can have the time, we can have enough sleep, and we can be in control of our emotions, we'll be able to make a decision.
Trudy?
Yeah.
Excuse me, I have a question about how the perfectionistic tendencies relate to that. Oh, good.
Right. And I'll tell you what, Linda, I am going to get into it. And if I haven't answered your questions towards the end, let's talk about it more. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Because it does, definitely. Perfectionism. Yeah. So interference with making good decisions, again, is the procrastination. So you might have insufficient information, and maybe you haven't conducted a proper decision-making process, which I'm going to show you what that is. That decision-making process uses the left brain. And again, lack of self-confidence. And certain beliefs. Here we go, perfectionistic. There you go, Linda. So yes, well, we think we have to get it perfect and get it right. And there's going to be something right on erroneous beliefs in just a moment. It says, again, sleep deprivation can affect this as well, the emotions. Now, there is also something different with making good decisions, and that's a confirmation bias. So if you, again, we're here for the story that we tell yourself, this would look familiar, but what a confirmation bias is that we, so the BS stands for our belief system, which I think is good. It's a lot of BS. OT stands for others' thoughts, what other people think, and DP stands for different perspective, right? But with a confirmation bias, what that does is we only take in what correlates with our own belief system. And we absolutely don't even give any credence to anything else. I'm sure we witnessed a lot of this during the crazy political season that we just went through, which I hope we never go through again. You know I was not open-minded. I had my belief system, and no matter what anybody else said, it didn't matter. So that's what confirmation bias is. And so we have to, when we're making decisions, we have to allow ourselves to be aware of that and to be open-minded as much as possible. But here are some erroneous beliefs that interfere with decision-making. These actually interfere with a whole lot of things. So what I'd like you to do, whether you want to do it in the chat or just write it down for yourself, is I'm going to put up 11 different beliefs. And if there's anything that you can recognize, write it down, okay? So everyone must love me. That's when we need approval from everyone. So those of us who might consult a whole bunch of people in making a decision, you might have this, wow, I need everyone's approval before I decide to do something, because everybody must love me. Here we go for the perfectionists in the crowd. I must be good at everything. It's horrible if I make a mistake. You know, what does that say about me? Here are the pessimists in the group. I know something bad will happen. Like you just think, wow, no matter which decision I make, it's not going to be good. And sometimes we are between a rock and a hard place too. I mean, some decisions are like that. If we have a tendency to just give up, you might have the belief it's easier not to even try. Try here is used negatively. Like if you ask some friends, I'm going to be moving next weekend, can you come over and help? And they say, I'll try to be there. That's what I'm talking about. Can you count on them when they say, I'll try to be there? All right. So that's not efforting. That's like, I'm not going to make a decision to really do whatever, but I don't have the guts to tell you I don't want to do it. I need someone stronger than I am. That's again, if you have the decisional style where you want to ask people what they think. So this means emotionally stronger, more competent, whatever. And there's only one good way or right way to do it, where again, this is where your belief system, you are so sure there's only one right way. So you've got to make that right decision. These interfere with a whole lot of things. So I've never given a presentation where I have 5 more coming up, but I've never given a presentation where people don't at least relate to one. And I've never given a presentation where they relate to all of them. So I'm not expecting you to, but you might find yourself in at least one of these. I'm too, whatever it is, to make a good decision. I'm too stupid. I'm too uneducated. I'm too old, you know, whatever it is to make a good decision. Things should be different. Okay, so like I shouldn't have to be making this decision. You know, this should be really easy. Why isn't it? The blamers in the group, I say, boy, it's your fault I feel this way. You know, I'm stuck with this decision and it's your fault. I can't help it. This is the way I am. I just procrastinate or I just can't make decisions. I can't help it. That's just me. And the belief that I cannot be happy unless I make the right decision. Is there anybody who couldn't relate to at least one? Okay, so again, that's a whole other presentation on how you change those around. I just want you to be aware that when you have those beliefs, that doesn't mean they're true. It just means that you've thought them a long time. But that is also why we get in trouble with making decisions. So for the left brain, now you can see the corpus callosum between the two of them. So this is a left brain way to make a decision. It's called conducting a proper decision-making process using your left brain. Number one, this sounds kind of ridiculous, but you have to realize you need to make a decision. sometimes we're just kind of wallowing in things and we're just not even realizing, yeah, it's time. We need to make a decision. Then get clear on what you want. And you would think, well, yeah, I know what I want. Not necessarily. Do you know it's easier to know what you don't want instead of what you do want? So if you are not clear about what you want, what you might want to do is set up two columns. What I don't want, write that down, and then what I do want. So let's say you have a job decision to make, and what I don't want to be micromanaged. I don't want to commute far. I don't want to feel like I'm not using all of my abilities. It's often easier to know, whoops, this is what I don't want. Then it's easy to figure out what you do want. Oh yeah, I want a close commute. I want a lot of freedom and autonomy. And I want, what was the third one I asked? I mentioned. Oh well, anyhow. So
using all your skills.
Using all your skills, right. So you want to feel competent. Thank you, Linda. Using all your skills. So good, in this job, I could be using all of this set of skills, and this job, I'm not using as many, etc. But then you still might have a difference of which one's more important. We'll talk about that in a moment. Determine your goals. So once you get clear on what you want, then you determine what your goals are to get you to what you want. So you kind of subdivide that. You gather information. So I had a client, well, I still have her, but excuse me, she always wanted, young woman, I think she's in her upper 20s, she always wanted to work in Europe. And she got an opportunity to have a job in Amsterdam. It was finally, wow, this is what I want. And Amsterdam was one of the countries she really wanted to work in. And, but she spent time gathering information. And as she was doing that, even though it was something she always wanted, the pay wasn't as good, and she found out the cost of living was really high. They weren't giving her any relocation benefits, so, and I think she found out that they didn't have a pension plan. So while there was a lot that appealed to her, as she gathered more information, she ended up saying no to the job, even though emotionally she was really excited about it. But that was great that she took time to gather that information to find that out ahead of time. So then you evaluate the options, you weigh the pros and cons, and we're going to do that with the right brain, which I'll tell you. But what I want you to do, though, when you evaluate the options, is be very aware of the shoulds. So like when we ask other people what they think, or we might have just gotten programmed with it too, well, I should go back to, I should take this job because my parents live here and they would be mad if I didn't stay here. Or like actually this girl that I was just mentioning, her parents who had traveled all over the world, they thought she should take the Amsterdam job. They were so excited. You should take it. So we have to pay attention of the shoulds, either on ourselves or someone else. Because when you have to be careful not to be a must debater, right? That's what a should is. You must do this. Okay. So then you select the best one and take action. You don't just make a decision and sit on it, because action trumps inaction. Even if it's the wrong decision, it is better to make a decision than just to sit and not do anything. Now, that's how you do it with the left brain. But as I'm going to suggest, we're going to also use the right brain. And these are things that you may not actually have known about. But remember when I said these are things that interfere with decision-making complexity? Because there's too many options and decisions. And what does that lead to? Anybody remember?
Procrastination.
Yeah, that too. Procrastination and uncertainty. That's why you're procrastinating, you're uncertain. This is a time to use our intuition. And I'm going to teach you several techniques to use your intuition. So it's a little different than most decision-making workshops that you may have attended. And then remember how I said, oh, we want to know what the consequences are in advance? Well, again, we're going to use the right brain to help with that. We're going to use our imagination to visualize the possible outcomes. So this is a technique taken from dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT. You may have heard of it. It's called the wise mind. I love this technique because it actually uses both your left logical brain and your right intuitive emotional brain. Where the two intersect, that's the wise mind, and that's really the best place to make decisions. So here's how the wise mind works. You're trying to decide what is in my best interest. By the, didn't mean to, hold on. All right. It shouldn't have been there, but it is. Okay. You're trying to decide what is in your best interest. So again, stay away from the shoulds. We have a tendency to say, should I do this or should I do that? The universe doesn't think you should do anything. There are things that are in your best interest and there are things that are not in your best interest. So I want to encourage you when you're thinking of decisions to get away from the shoulds and say, what is in my best interest? So what you do is you just do what I call a brain dump and you write down all the pros of making that decision. And you don't analyze it, you just write them down. Then you score the value from 1 to 10 on how important that is to you. So, the first one's an 8, then the next two are 10s. Then you go over to the cons and you do the same thing. Now you can see there's more cons, there's 5 cons. But on the value, okay, this is how you scored it. Once you have scored all of these, you total them up. So notice that even though there were only 3 pros, the point value is higher than all those cons. So that can happen. It could also flip, of course, where it's, but what's important is the score value, not how many pros and how many cons. But then here is the most important thing of all. Once you get that total, you tune into your body. How do you feel about that outcome? Do you feel like the sense of contraction, like, oh, I really wanted it to be the other way? Or do you feel a sense of expansion? I am so glad that that happened. I'm so happy that that happened. I'm really glad how my score went. And here's the thing, you go with your feelings. Your intuition, remember I talked about the higher intuitive self? Our higher intuitive self really does know. So you go where you feel the expansion. So you're doing something quite logically, right? This is a left brain thing, weighing the pros and cons. And then you focus on expansion and contraction. Does that make sense to folks? This is a really good technique. I've taught it to clients. I use it myself. I'll tell you of a good example is the house that I have. I bought it 7 years ago. I was approved for the mortgage and I had a job at an agency at the time. And I was closing on the house on October 30th. And October 1st, I found out that the grant that I had been under for 8 years wasn't being renewed. Now, the good news was I didn't have to go back to the bank and tell them I lost my job because I didn't do that. But I'm wondering, okay, in 2 months, I'm not going to have a job because they said it was ending at the first of the year. I'm not going to have a job and I just bought a house by myself. All right. So I did this technique. And even though there was certainly a con of not having, and that rated pretty high, I was really thrilled that I still felt compelled to go forward with the house. Okay, it was like, good, I'm glad that this worked out this way, even though logically it made no sense. I also used another technique with the house, which I'll show you in a second. I've taught these techniques to a lot of my clients, whether they're coaching or counseling, and it works. Anybody ever hear of muscle testing or kinesiology? This can seem kind of woo-woo, but I want you to know there's a lot of research behind it. If you want to know about it, there's a book. It's very dry reading, but I thought it was great. It was Power versus Force by David R. Hawkins, who was an MD and a PhD, did tons of research on why kinesiology or muscle testing works. So is anybody else familiar with this? This is the understanding that, again, our higher cells, our muscles, every cell in our body really knows what our higher self wants. I know it sounds a little woo. Remember, we're in the right brain now. Okay, so you can do this technique with someone else helping you. And how you do that is just as you see, this person has their dominant arm out. And you have a trusted friend, somebody with just 2 fingers, say, if this is in your best interest, or excuse me, it's not a question, you have to say it as a statement. This is in your best interest, like to take this job. Let's talk about the house. I didn't use this particular technique, but I have used it on other things, like when I wrote my book. So it was moving into this house is in my best interest. And then you tell, and then the person says, resist me, and presses down. If it is in your best interest, you will be strong. If it isn't, you will be weak. It's fascinating. You can practice this with vitamins and supplements. You can hold the vitamin supplement. This is in my best interest to take this mineral. This is in my best interest to take this mineral, and you hold it to your heart. And then you have somebody say, resist me, and you'll see if it is or it isn't. It's really fascinating. I know this doesn't, it sounds like, what the heck are you talking about? But if you really are skeptical, read Power versus Force, because as I said, he was a researcher and he did tons of research on this. It's important that you don't ask it as a question, you make it as a statement, because our bodies know, our cells know what is true for us. That's the premise of all of this. If you don't have somebody doing it with you, you can do it yourself by making a circle, and all of you could practice this right now between your third finger and your thumb, and then you say whatever you're trying to figure out. So let's see, getting this house, well, it's already done. So think of something, what decision am I trying to make? Going to Chicago. Okay, so I have family in Chicago and family in California. So, and the Chicago family is my sister and her husband, and I'm trying to decide how much time I need to spend up there because there's a lot of health issues. Okay, it is in my best interest to move back to Chicago. I was able to break that very quickly. It is in my best interest to stay in Greensboro. I'm pulling, I really am pulling, and I can't break through. Okay. So that, now, if you want to do it anonymously so that you're not thinking, oh, I'm interfering with this, I suggest, and this is what I did when I wrote my book. I had a friend come over, and on little sheets of paper like this, I wrote down, it is in my best interest to spend the money to write this book, because it costs money. I did self-publish, but it still costs money. And then I had, it is not in my best interest to write this book. And we tore the paper off and we folded it. And then I held it, not knowing, my friend mixed them up. I didn't know which one was which. Okay, and we did the one where she was resisting. And obviously, since I wrote the book, the whole reason I wrote the book was because it was a very strong, it's in my best interest to write the book. Now, have I made a lot of money on it? No, I haven't. but that doesn't mean it wasn't in my best interest to write the book. I always wanted to be an author. And I do believe that what I have in the book has benefited a lot of people. Does that make sense to you? So it wasn't just about money. I still got it was in my best interest, and I went ahead and did it. I can't teach this stuff if I'm not going to do it myself, right? I mean, that's just how it is. Okay. The next one, and this is one of my favorite ones, although I will say this is probably the most right brain hemisphere one of all, because I have no scientific evidence about why this works. I have found it to be very reliable. And I call it the sign technique. So if such and such is true, if this is in my best interest, again, now this time it's a little bit of a question, not a statement. I use this, my daughter was acting out as a teenager, and I said, if Amy is going to be okay, then, so it wasn't just like, is this in my best interest? You know, it was something like, because I was filled with anxiety about it, not knowing what to do. But I also use this for the house. So we go back to the house. If this is in my best interest to get this house now, then, and the way I do it, different people do this technique differently. Some use the same sign all the time. I have one client who always uses a red cardinal. That's her sign. How I personally do it is I just let my mind go blank, and whatever rises up. So it's then I will see or I will hear a. Now, when I asked about Amy, my sign was a giraffe. Okay, so literally I was driving to a client's house. This is when I did home studies. I worked for an adoption agency, and we interviewed at people's homes. I was very concerned about what's going on with Amy. I'm only using my examples, by the way, not because I haven't taught this to lots of other people, but to protect confidentiality. That's why I'm using my examples, okay? So I was like, okay, if Amy is really, if she's really going to be okay, then I will see her here. And I literally did this in the car. I was at a stoplight, and I said a giraffe. Within 24 hours, you have to make a specific time frame, okay? So I go to the client's house, and she's sitting on her couch, and I'm interviewing her, and I look over at her end table, and there's a statue of a giraffe. I saw it within 45 minutes.
Wow.
Now, since then, giraffes I've also come to know stand for unconditional love, because they have the biggest heart of any animal in the animal kingdom.
Mhm.
You think about it, that makes sense. A giraffe's heart is 25 pounds. They have to push it all the way up to their head.
Wow.
So in my bedroom, I have a very big collection of giraffes, all sorts of giraffes, so that when I go to sleep, I'm impressing upon me all is well, and that I'm receiving unconditional love, because that's what I've decided it stands for. But that's how I got into my giraffe collection.
How do you determine the time frame? Is it just a random time frame that you pick, or is there
It's a random, but I would suggest you make it short.
Okay.
I've used up to 48 hours.
Okay.
I
So
usually
you could
don't-
even say like within the next 5 minutes or something, or is that too
could.
short?
That might be a little too short.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you believe, as I do, that there's no such thing as coincidence, coincidences are God winks. So I usually like 24 hours, because it's
Okay.
short, but it's long enough for something to happen. Like, I mean, this thing with the giraffe was really fast.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
How I did it with getting the house. I already told you I did that one technique, but there's still, you know, okay, logically, what else did I do about the house? I called up my financial advisor. I said, Dwayne, just found out my job is ending, and as you know, I'm closing on this house. Now, he actually works for the same bank, but in the advisor department. And I said, what do I do? He said, you should be okay for a few months. So logically, he was also giving me permission. I still felt anxiety about it though, right? So I did the sign technique on the house. And what did I do? Oh yeah, I said, if it's in my best interest to go ahead and buy this house, I will see or hear, because sometimes we hear songs, and Elf came up Now, elf, I think, came up because I live on F land, and if you look at it quickly, you think it's elf land. The street I live on is F land. I think that's why elf came up, but nonetheless, elf came up. Literally, I'm looking through magazines. I wasn't even thinking that it was near Christmas. Well, I saw not catalogs I was looking through. You know how many elves I saw as I was looking through the catalogs? My conscious mind wasn't thinking, you're going to see elves because it's near Christmas. But I sure saw them, and I was like, oh, good. Again, I checked in with my body. I was relieved. So between doing those 2 right brain techniques and the 1 left brain technique, well, the one that combined the left and right brain, one that's totally right brain, and then actually asking my financial advisor, all anxiety about getting the house went away. All of it. And I went and got the house, and 2 months later, I had a job. So I only had to and I still had it. I mean, I had, and what's interesting is I still had income, right? Because I had 2 months to get before the job ended. So I just moved very smoothly.
That's great.
Yeah. So that's how that works. So I would suggest you do 24, but you could do whatever you want. I just wouldn't say a week. Really, that's way too long, right? You want it to be within a short period of time. And this technique, for whatever reason, really relieves my anxiety the most because I don't think I'm interfering with it. Does that make sense? I don't think that I have a preconceived notion, because now you also have to make sure you're not, like, I can't use giraffes anymore because I'm always going to see giraffes. All I have to do is walk in my bedroom. And I know that, so I can't use that because I'm going to see a giraffe. Right? So you have to do something that you don't think that isn't right out there. So anybody else have any questions on this? So where did I? Hey, baby, look. All right, here it is. Okay, just want it. So before I get into that, so in the book that I did write, I have a whole chapter on decision making. It goes through these techniques, and you can get this either on Amazon or you can get it through me with a signed copy. I sell it for less than Amazon does, and I'll give you a cute little bookmark as well. So if anybody's interested, let's see. You could also get the ebook for $5.95 from Amazon. I sell these for $10 plus $3 for mail, so $13. And I think on Amazon the hard copy is $15.95. So anyhow, if you're interested in more of these other techniques, please get my book if you want. But I have given you everything that's in there for those techniques. Okay, so pitfalls of making good decisions, as I mentioned before, is confirmation bias. A left brain solution is to pretend you're giving advice to a friend rather than to yourself. So to get out of the confirmation bias, what could you say? What would you tell your friend in terms of making that decision? Ignoring red flags. Has anybody ever made a decision and there was a red flag?
Mhm.
I had that about getting married 3 days before I got married, and I ignored it.
Mm.
I would say heed your intuition. You know what I was doing with those red flags? I was thinking people were in from out of town already. My parents spent a lot of money on this wedding. I was thinking of the wedding and not the marriage. So I would say pay attention to those red flags. Heed your intuition. Making fast decisions, sometimes it's because it's too complex, as we mentioned. There's too much information. So a left brain solution, limit the amount of information. Here we are with the perfectionism, Linda. So embrace good enough instead of perfection. Okay, this is good enough amount of information. This is a good enough decision. I don't know if it's perfect, and it's okay. Embrace good enough. And on my Truist Coaching website, I have blogs on perfectionism. So if you'd like to look at that, feel free, and how to help transform that. Believing that making a decision, so especially if it's a hard, important decision, believing that it's way too difficult, focus on concrete facts. This is left brain again, just focus on the concrete facts. Eliminate weak options. There might be a lot of options, but some of them are just weak. Don't even bother considering them. Believing that the consequences are too important and irrevocable. I will say that almost any decision we make in life, with the exception of birth and death, can be revoked. So if you choose to move and you don't like where you move, yeah, you might have wasted time and money, but you can always move back, right? If you took one job and you don't like it, you can always get another job, especially if you have the belief that you can always get another job. I mean, I have been told by clients and even friends, oh, I'm too old to get another job. Last job I got, now I work for myself, but the last job I got, I was 66 years old. So, because I didn't entertain the thought that I was too old. I entertained the thought that I have a lot of experience, so who wouldn't want me, right? So visualize the future outcomes of choosing different options. So that's where you use your imagination. We don't know for sure if this is going to happen, but if you do this, what do you imagine would happen? If you do that, what would you imagine would happen? Weigh all of the different options, visualizing the future outcomes that are possible. How are we doing time-wise? We okay? We're almost done. All right. So decision-making solutions using both brain hemispheres, left and the right. Here's a left brain one. Practice making small decisions. For those of you who really say, oh my God, I have such a hard time making decisions, practice small decisions that really don't matter. I'm going to decide where we're going to go for dinner tonight. That's a small decision. It's not earth-shattering. Practice it. It's a muscle. Build up your muscle.
I think the big one for this is also not being enabled by other people. Because I know, like, in my case, my husband will just be like, oh, I'll just make the decision to where we're going to go eat or something. And I'm just like, okay, you can make the decision. I'm fine with that.
Well, if you truly are fine with it, then that's fine. If you want to tell him that you're practicing making small decisions, ask him not to make the decision. Okay. When I was married, I didn't really, I still don't really care. As I just said, I don't really care where we eat. My ex-late husband, he always said like, no, I want Chinese. And I'd say, but we're meeting Bob and Susan. I don't know if they want Chinese. You know, I didn't care, but he would be, no, we got it, you know. So if I cared, I would say something. But most of the time I didn't. However,
a lot of times I use it as a crutch. So I don't know if that's a good thing.
Well, okay. It doesn't sound like it is right now, Erica, because you said you have a hard time making a decision. So why don't you ask him to assist you by not making the decision?
That's a good idea. I'll do that, definitely.
Okay, good.
I think you can also, excuse me, take a look at all the small decisions you make every day. Like, what are you going to wear? What are you going to have for breakfast? What are you know, just little things to realize that you can make decisions and, you know, build your confidence about doing it. I did that because I felt totally inept at decision making at one point, and it was like, okay, I do make some decisions, so I can do it, but I need to do more.
Very good, Linda. Very good point. Yeah, we do. I always debate what I'm going to wear when I'm making virtual presentations because of this background. I always like, okay, I have to wear something that's not going to, you know, it's going to go okay with the background. You know, so that's where I debate, you know, like I might have wanted to wear something else today. I'm like, no, I'm doing this. I got to come up with, yeah. But anyhow, that's a great idea, realizing how many decisions, hey, deciding to get out of bed and go to work is a decision.
And,
you know, sometimes we're like, oh, I'm too tired, you know, but if you get up and go, yeah.
I wanted to add what you said earlier about, you know, just looking, it's not a life or death decision, and practicing that muscle. And it's like playing around that with the small decisions. I like that kind of, you know, it's not a life or death decision, but we're going to go to eat. And I'd also put that in a context. A lot, as you said, a lot of decisions are we're resilient enough once we take this path to maybe circle back or to find something new. So I just like this adventure about it. Like maybe you can reframe it as a little adventure.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, I don't think there's coincidences in the world. So like when I'm from Chicago, I think some of you got on after I had announced that, but in case you're wondering where the accent that I don't think I have, but you guys think I have. When I was looking for a new job, I was looking in Chicago and I was looking in Greensboro, and there were reasons that I was thinking of making this move. And I literally left it open to the universe by saying, whichever position comes through first, that's where I'm supposed to go. And I obviously got a job in Greensboro before I got one in Chicago, which is interesting because I was pretty well known. I worked in the field of adoption at the time, and I was pretty well known in the adoption world in Chicago. And yet I got the job in Greensboro first. So that was one of those things where I was like, I'm just going to leave it up to the universe. Boom. And didn't worry about it. And I think that's one of the main things. You know, I mean, that was an important life-changing decision, and yet I literally left it, just trusted that whatever work was in my highest and best interest. And it has proven to be so for me. So use logic. So, you know, okay, logically, what's a good idea? But also heed intuition. Okay. Conduct a proper decision-making plan, like I showed you what to do. But within that proper decision-making plan, there's places to use your imagination and your intuition to choose the best solution. When it says select the best option, do wise mind to select the best option. Right? The other thing you may want to do is assess your needs with a professional coach or mentor, such as myself or someone else, because we can help you see things more objectively. We can help you go into when I say right direction, the direction that's best for you, in your best interest, because I'm always letting clients be self-directed. But we also help you stay accountable. I do have for free on my Truist coaching website, because my counseling website is Truist Life Counseling, but my coaching website is the Truist Life Roadmap. This is a cute little roadmap with some suggestions and information about ways that you can start off pick out your goal in life and figure out how to get there. As I mentioned, here's my book. And I thank Women's Resource Center again for allowing me to present for you. And here is my information. And I'm always happy to just do a consultation, no charge, just whatever. If I can be of help to you in any way, I'm more than happy to, because like I said, I really, truly do feel impassioned about helping women become their truest, best, most authentic self. That means making great decisions for yourself as well. So I thank you for deciding to spend your time with me today. Thank you.
Trudy, we just really appreciate you so much. I think everybody got a little something out of this, and hopefully we'll all make some really great decisions in the future.